Shuka a aussi mené des ateliers au sujet des changements climatiques et des solutions à ces problèmes. Aujourd'hui, elle est à la tête du Green Project à l'école internationale Kids Kingdom, où elle a créé des objectifs et des règles pour l'école dans le but de réduire les déchets et l'empreinte carbone. Donc, je vous présente Shuka. Les déchets et l'empreinte.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs, and that's all I can say in French. I like to start my presentation with this magnificent image of Earth. But before I go any further, I like to propose a question. Do we have to change? Now, keep this in mind because we will get back to it in a little while. And of course, the Apollo mission, among other things, changed the environmental movement, and we have learned a lot about ourselves. This image was taken from the moon by the Apollo, and 18 months after this photo was taken, the first Earth Day was organized. And we have learned a lot about ourselves and our planet. One of the most important things that we have learned and have long known by scientists was how climate crisis has to do with the sky. This image gave us a new way to see and a new way to think about the planet we all share and live on. This image communicates one of the most important facts about climate crisis. The sky is not what it appears to be when you walk out and look up at it. It is not limitless, it is not indestructible, and it is not thick. It is fragile. The light waves pass through the atmosphere, and most of it is absorbed by Earth, used by us humans, animals, and plants. And some of the heat is radiated back to space, and some of it, because of the natural greenhouse gas layers trapped within the atmosphere, which keeps the temperatures on our planet within comfortable boundaries which are perfect for all the beings. But with all the innovation and industrial advancements came pollution in the form of heat-trapping gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and the dangerous mercury which we are now discovering in our fish. So this is the layer of atmosphere before all this heat-trapping pollution. That's the atmosphere. And this is now. Because we are putting 110 million tons of carbon pollution into the atmosphere every single day, we are thickening this shell of atmosphere, and what's happening is that most of this outgoing heat is now trapped, which is driving the temperature of our planet upwards. And there are many different facts and causes of this man-made global warming pollution, as you can see here in this image. Air transport, landfills, forest burning, industrial agriculture, and the main one, of course, which is the fossil fuels. And now the energy that is trapped by this man-made global pollution is now equivalent to 400,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs every 24 hours. And that is a lot of energy multiplied by 400,000 every single day. And that, of course, has impacts, huge impact on the temperature, climate, and environment. And what's happening now is that we are breaking so many records. In fact, 14 of the 15 hottest years ever recorded have been in the past 16 years. And the hottest of all was last year, 2015. And these extreme temperatures are continuing month by month. And you can see the effect of it on humans and animals. This is India last year, where 2,300 people died due to heat wave. And this is just the atmospheric heat that we talked about. But most of this extra heat goes into our oceans, and that can have dramatic consequences because our planet is mostly covered by the oceans. The increase of ocean temperatures have consequences, and the first order of consequence is that the ocean-based storms become stronger due to this extra heat. And the warming of the oceans include the disruption of water cycle, which begins with the evaporation of water vapor off the oceans into the sky, and more moisture in the atmosphere, therefore larger downpours, which results in massive flooding, as we have seen all around the world. This is India in 2013, and as the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, said, we are feeling climate change is fast growing now. And we are seeing the effect of these repeated storms on agriculture. This is in the Philippines in 2012. And the same extra heat that causes the evaporation of water vapor from the oceans also takes the soil moisture out of the land. And that's why at the same time we have extreme floods and storms, we also have more droughts around the world. And you can see the effects of it on agriculture again. In the Philippines, the farmers are now very worried and concerned about the unpredictability of rainfall and about the increasing of droughts. And we all know that when it comes to climate change and the impacts of climate change, Philippines is one of the countries that is most vulnerable to climate change. And when the vegetation is dry along with the land, it becomes more vulnerable to fires. And climate crisis creates more lightning, and that's why at the same time we are seeing many fires around the world. And of course, air pollution is one of the other problems caused by carbon pollution. And as the mayor of Beijing said, that this place is now unlivable. This is in Beijing just a few days after, and you can see the air pollution. And the warming of the climate and the extra soil moisture are now contributing to the spread of so many tropical diseases that have never been a problem in the past. The battle between humans and microbes have been going on since the beginning of our species, and we know what works in our favor is colder days and longer and cooler winters. We are now in the midst of what the biologists call the sixth great extinction. We are in danger in this century, and we are losing 1/2 of all the living species on Earth. And already the land-based animals and plant species are moving towards the poles at the average rate of 15 feet per day. That is scary. And last year, the same storm that caused the massive flooding in the US raised the temperatures at the North Pole 50 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than average. And you can see when the ice of the Arctic, the land-based ice of the Arctic melts, it raises the sea level. And the sea level has been going up due to the warming of the oceans. When the oceans get warmer, they expand in volume. So that, and now with the massive melting of this massive amount of ice at the poles, we are seeing an accelerated sea level. And when we have the sea level rise, these are the countries most at risk. And we've got Bangkok here as well. And so the cost of climate crisis is mounting up. And there are many aspects that I haven't even mentioned here. It is an enormous burden. The cost of carbon is unbearable. And the threat and its threat to our global economy is unbearable, and its threat to the world species is unsurvivable. So going back to the question that I have proposed earlier, do we have to change? The answer is yes, we do have to change, and we must change. Well, thank you so much for your time. I now welcome any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Good evening, madam. I will pass the microphone to all the persons. But I have a question to you. Excuse me, friends. May I talk to her in English? You don't mind? Yes, may I? Okay. You have described things that we know very well. And the states have been taking some decisions already. They have big meetings and they decide to lower the consumption of this or that. What me as a person, what he as a friend, what this man as a friend as well can do every morning to lower the risks. What could we do individually to start that?
Great question, thank you. Well, that's actually one of the things that I'm also an educator, and I organize and conduct workshops around Bangkok. And this is one of the things that I tell the students, that you can start from yourself, and you can start by doing very simple green acts. Transportation, because we know where the carbon emission is coming from. As an individual, to take those very basic steps to reduce the carbon footprint that you release and you emit would be the first step. Using public transport and trying to reduce the carbon emission by having maybe one meatless dish a week, or turning off the air cons when you're not in the room. These are the very basic steps that you can do as a person. And of course, as an adult, just to raise awareness, to provide opportunities where you can have the conversations with your friends and colleagues, and just to talk about it, because it is one of the most important issues these days, you know, our environmental issues, and we can, by choosing the right politicians, when we vote for our country, when we vote for those people, the business leaders or the political leaders, it is very important to know who we vote for, because they are the ones that can change the rules and regulations and actually pass on laws that could help us and take us towards a more sustainable future.
Merci, madame.
Good evening, Thomas. If I carry on in English, ça vous dérange pas si je fais en français, en anglais? Okay. My question is, you mentioned about the carbon footprint, and I see that most of us don't deny, but I'm surprised that nowadays we still only focus on carbon. What about nitrogen?
Well,
je vous demande to mention that in French. Ma question est la suivante. Tout le monde parle du carbone, mais par rapport à l'azote. Parce que l'azote, je ne me souviens plus du ratio, mais c'est également un effet non négligeable sur les effets de serre.
Et méthane.
Oui, mais méthane et l'azote d'une façon générale.
Oui, c'est 23.
Oui,
c'est 23.
23 par rapport à 4.
Le méthane, c'est 23 fois l'effet de serre du CO2.
Merci.
The thing is, as I mentioned earlier when I showed that image of different causes to our man-made global warming, we focus on carbon emission because that's the main problem that we are dealing with at the moment. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other factors that are changing our climate and has already changed. So we have other greenhouse gases as well, as you mentioned, methane and mercury and other greenhouse gases. But this is the main one because we emit 35 billion metric tons of carbon pollution into the atmosphere every year, and that is a lot, and that is why it's our main focus. But as you've seen previously in that image, we've got the landfills, we've got industrial agriculture, and that's where we get the other greenhouse gases from. So they are a part of it, but we're focusing on carbon pollution because this is our main problem right now. And if we can just get the hang of this, which is the main, we're hoping that we can reduce our emission and hopefully make it a more livable place for the future generation.
One step at a time. And
Ouais, moi, je vais dans le sens de Thomas. I want to go in this way because, okay, we're talking about CO2 and carbon, but the next problem is methane because it's 23 times more greenhouse gas effect making, and it's also the next problem, partly because of cows and animals, and sheep in Australia, New Zealand, and so on. But mostly because in the future, because of permafrost melting, le permafrost de la toundra, permafrost de la toundra. La toundra, c'est de 10 cm à 1 mètre à 2 mètres de terre glacée. Quand tout ça fond, ce qui est en dessous, c'est du méthane. Et là c'est totalement autre chose. Là, c'est un autre univers. Le problème, c'est que voilà, ça va rien.
Recently, there was an article about that. And the second one, and a quick one, you mentioned about the different locations that are likely to be submerged. But what about Jakarta? Because I've heard recently that they have decided to initiate a mega project with a kind of big dike of around 60 kilometers length.
Oh, there are so many countries that's really. Unfortunately, I only have 10 minutes to quickly finish my presentation. But yeah, well, we've got other countries, India, Bangladesh. Even earlier this year in France, we have witnessed the massive flooding, and a couple of months ago in Louisiana in America. These things are happening more frequently these days. So unfortunately, the impact of it we are seeing everywhere. Droughts in Thailand this year, we have seen it last year in the Philippines, and all the storms and floods. So it is not just a few countries that I have mentioned in my presentation, but unfortunately there are many countries at risk.
I'm Vincent. Maybe you could say a word about...
Mike is coming.
Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Mike is coming.
Hi, I'm Vincent. Maybe you could say a word about the presidential running in the US. If I understand correctly, Donald Trump is climato-skeptical, so he doesn't have a plan. But I'm not really sure that Clinton has a plan. I try to follow the campaign. But what is the plan of Clinton? If you know something about that, you can say what.
I usually try not to include politics when I talk about climate change. But while we are watching the debate, I'd rather not talk much about it. But she has promised a lot in that area, and I myself personally would like to see her as the future President of the United States, because it is very important for our mission and what we do as climate reality. And I myself, as an environmentalist, we need people that could actually make a difference in this area. And I believe that Hillary Clinton would be the one. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Oh dear.
Sorry, do you have other questions? Est-ce que d'autres personnes ont des questions à poser? En français, ceux qui n'auraient pas osé les poser en anglais. Madame, are you optimistic of the future with the measures that have been starting, the measures that have been taken, or are you still very pessimistic?
Well, I am very optimistic, and that is why I'm sitting here today trying to make a little difference. I do, however, I believe that we've got the chance right now, and we must act right now. We are already seeing the impacts of climate change when we emit the carbon pollution, and when we feel and see its full effects. So even though if we start it now, we know that we are going to still experience the warming for a considerable time, no question about that. But we know that something must be done about it now, and we are hoping if we act now to swiftly transition from dirty fossil fuels to clean energy, there's a chance that we could limit the warming to 2 degrees Celsius, and if we don't and we continue on the path that we are on, there's a chance that the temperatures increase to 6 degrees Celsius by early next century. So we have a choice, and we must act on climate now.
Thank you, Shuka. Now I will welcome the French professor who is waiting for us in the tour. So I will revert to French language. Sorry about this.
It's okay.